Hello again from Washington State Archives. This video series is here to help you get started with digging deep in your historical research. Welcome to Video 3, Digging Deep, Finding and Using Primary Sources. We know from our previous videos that after researching secondary sources, we move on to primary sources such as documents, recordings, interviews, autobiographies, photos, journals, artifacts, anything that's an original source of information from the time of the research topic. You can try your luck with an internet search and you might find some useful primary sources, but the reality is, most institutions that preserve vast collections of primary sources don't have the manpower to digitize all their holdings, much less create the metadata necessary to make them searchable online. However, many archives these days at least have an online catalog where you can find descriptions of their collections. So the best place to start your primary source research is usually an archive. A government archive such as the National Archives or Washington State Archives specializes in storing and preserving historical documents like vital records, including birth, death, marriage, and divorce records. They have censuses, maps, other land records, articles of incorporation, legislation, court records, criminal records, photos, and much more. An institutional archive, somewhere like a church or a corporate archive, will hold records relevant to their organization. A history museum is a good place to find artifacts and exhibits, and libraries are good for certain primary sources such as autobiographies and newspapers. Most archives, museums, and libraries make it fairly easy to contact them by phone or email. You can go to Washington State Archives website at sos.wa.gov/archives and use the Ask an Archivist button, and they're very willing to assist with research projects. So don't be intimidated by the massive collections at these institutions. There are people that'll make it easier than you ever imagined to do historical research. Like we talked about in the secondary sources video, you'll find lots of clues as to which primary sources to seek out when you're researching secondary sources. The names, dates, and locations given in the secondary sources will point you to which primary sources are relevant to your topic. There will often be more than just clues, as a lot of secondary sources will directly cite their primary sources, but don't limit yourself to just those cited sources. Now, how to use primary sources. Primary sources provide direct evidence of what happened and when, with first-hand accounts, personal connections to the topic, additional details not included in the secondary sources, or considered in the topic's interpretation and analysis. Primary sources are the backbone of your research. They basically give you something to lean on. You can cite them to provide proof that supports your thesis, analysis, and interpretations. Example, if one of your secondary sources is a textbook that mentions a certain court case relevant to your project, you can take that info to an archive and find documentation of that court case, which will not only give you proof that your court case happened, but all the detailed information from the case, even details that might have been left out of your secondary source. Now that you know how to find and use secondary and primary sources, look out for future Digging Deep videos about how to use specific types of secondary and primary sources.